Hello everyone. I noticed signs there's been some moisture in a section of my attic that sits above a vaulted ceiling in the house. So the first thing I want to do is make sure there's enough roof ventilation to keep air flowing and dry things out in that section. There's a ridge vent across the entire length of every level of the roof. It appears adequate, but I'll be testing actual airflow performance if these initial actions don't solve the problem. But ridge vent is only part of the equation. Proper soffit vents will flow an equivalent air volume to feed them. If you clearly see a lot of light coming up through the soffits, like in this other section of my attic, there's probably good ventilation through the soffits. There's definitely some light passing through some of the truss bays in this section, but I can't see light from most of them. It might just be the awkward angles I'm stuck viewing them from. But I'll know better after I start removing some of the non-vented soffit sections in order to add more perforated venting soffit sections. So you can see on the back of the house, that is a perforated section. There's tiny holes in the soffit that are used to serve as ventilation for the attic roof. But then the next section and the next section and the next section are solid. They're not perforated, so there's no airflow through those. And then there's one more. It looks like two, but that's one panel of perforated soffit, and so on. So every 5 panels contains one perforated panel. So I'm going to be pulling out soffit panels and installing more perforated soffit to provide more ventilation. And so this is one section of the solid non-perforated soffit material. And this is a piece of the perforated soffit material. You can see how it's full of tiny little holes to allow air to flow through it. But if there isn't enough of these being used, there won't be enough air moving up through the soffit. So I've already started working on this. Starting off on the far left-hand side there's just no room for a camera and me and taking down that length of gutter all at the same time. So I took the gutter down from that end out to there, and there's the length of gutter down there in the lawn. I put it there so it's running downhill, and I hosed it out. There wasn't much in it. We don't get much leaves over here because there's no trees close to the house. So the next thing I did was I started removing these sections of soffit. And I did that by pulling the nails out of the lower part of the fascia, putting a block under there to hold the fascia out. The fascia has a bend in it, so it goes underneath the soffit. And then the soffit's under here, like this. And there's a nail in there and a nail in there, and the pieces of soffit interlock together. And then with the fascia flat down like it's supposed to be, it also wraps under here and holds up the edge of the soffit.
So this is how far I've gotten so far with removing the soffits. And now there's space in here for me to put the set the camera up to show you removing each section of the soffit. I'm not going to show you each section, all the sections, but I'll show you a couple just so you get the gist of it. And then I'll continue on working. Now it's very important for me to save these pieces that are perforated because I'm going to use them farther down the line. I'm going to reuse them, so I don't want to damage them too much while I'm removing them. There's a roofing nail in here and a roofing nail here that holds this up. So I'm just trying to get under the edge of the nail. They pounded the nails in too tight to begin with. I'm just trying to get under the edge and try to get it started with a screwdriver. Just trying to pound this, tap this under there, under the head of the nail to try to start extracting it. While doing the least damage possible. And that one looks like it's going to come out pretty easy. Got a big pair of diagonal pliers here that once there's space to get in there under the nail head, it can grab on the shaft of the nail, pull it out. You can bend it. I didn't say it was easy, but it's doable. And here it comes. And I didn't do too much damage on this piece of soffit material. That's the perforated vent soffit. I want to save that. This nail is pounded really flush. That's a problem. The people who installed it drove those nails home too tight. You're not supposed to drive them all the way down when you're doing this. You're supposed to leave a 1/16 to 1/8 of an inch gap in the nail head so that this stuff is free floating, sort of. It has space to expand and contract because the holes in it for the nails are elongated, so it can expand and contract. This block needs to move out of my way. And just set that there. Loosen that. And now if I'm lucky, I'll be able to get this nipper in there, which I can. Just pull the nail out. Didn't mean to let that drop like that, but it's unharmed. So this piece is in good condition and ready for reuse. Just have to clean it off. There, I set up a floodlight down there behind the camera to illuminate this a little bit. Hopefully it shows better. We're on the north side of the house. It's a nice sunny day, but under here and in the shade, I can see how this is pretty dark and maybe it's not coming out so good. Alright, so I'll repeat the process. This is a solid piece. It's not perforated, so it's not quite as valuable to me. but I still need it. I still need to use it, so try to preserve it as much as possible. Oh. The head popped right off that nail. That's okay, I guess. And there it is. Managed to get that nail to pop out far enough so I can grab it with the nipper. Oh, some of these have a nail in the middle for some reason. Good. Okay, so while I'm working under here, I'm trying to look and see if the baffles are positioned correctly. That one looks pretty good now. I pulled down on it and stapled it down to this edge here. Okay, so that's a very narrow bay there, and it's stuffed with fiberglass insulation. I'm going to have to see what I can do about that. I'm not sure I can do anything except maybe remove some of the fiberglass, and I'd rather not do that if I can help it. So I'm going to do that off camera and I'll show you the results. This one here is hard to say. Is there enough of a gap up there? I'm going to try to, well, it actually looks like it has some gap. Maybe what I need to do is to shine the light up there and go into the attic. This one here is too tight. I need to pull down on that so there's more airspace between the baffle and the bottom of the roof sheathing.
I'm looking to see if the soffit insulation baffles are providing enough airspace for air flowing into the attic. This one looks okay, but I can pull it out over the top of the wall, pull it down, and staple it to the outside of the sheathing. That will increase the space between the top of the baffle and the bottom of the roof sheathing. Some of the baffles they put in are really incorrect the way they did it. The baffle is so close to the underside of the roof deck that there's no room for airflow. Now over here, this one over here next to it doesn't look as bad. There's a little bit of space, a half inch over here, maybe an inch over here. But that still needs to be corrected. As I move down this way, This one looks great. There's all kinds of room for airflow. And this one is not too bad. No baffle, and this is blocked. And this one looks good. This one here, I'll put a baffle in from the attic. And on down the line here. The rest of these I can access quite easily from the attic. Now moving back up this way, there's the one I started with. But over to this side, this looks okay. So that's what I'm going to do next, is just try to correct some of these baffles and hopefully increase the airflow up through the truss bays there. I want air moving up through all the truss bays. That's the goal here. Basically, I just have to push in on the bottom of those to get them unstapled from the inside. Pull the flap down out here and then staple them down, and it kind of compresses the end of the fiberglass insulation and makes a little more airspace above it getting up through there. So I'll take it off camera now and work on it. I'll get back to you in a second. Okay, so I've stapled all these baffles down, and now I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, so I made a baffle out of a piece of heavy moving carton, and that's how it turned out. I'd say that should function really well. It'll be fine. You see how much extra space there is for air to move through there? This is the one that was so tight before. I don't know how far up the camera can see in there, but I was able to get a lot more room for air to flow through. So this one's a lot better than it was too. All kinds of space up in there now for the air to flow through. That's the one that wasn't blocked to begin with. Now this one was a little interesting because this corner of the cardboard up in there was wet. You can tell it has been wet. It bears the unmistakable telltale signs of water staining, and it's wrinkled because it shrunk when it dried. But there's obviously a lot more space here for air to flow through now, so hopefully that problem is cured. Now this is the section of the attic where there's roof trusses and they're 2 feet apart. When it transitions over here and from here down, it's rafter construction, and they're 16 inches apart, 16 on center. And some of these will need some baffles up in there, but I'll be able to access this. Oh, this one has a baffle. I'll be able to access all of these from above in the attic. And so I'll take care of this in the attic. As a matter of fact, from here all the way down to the end is rafter construction in the attic.
This is the soffit I'm replacing it with. A lot more perforations and fully ventilated. And what I'm going to try to do is get it so it lines up where I have one perforated piece underneath each of the truss bays. So between each pair of trusses, I want there to be ventilation. I'm going to start by putting a solid piece on the very end there, because that doesn't go anywhere except just up to the side of the house, the side of the second floor. So I'll start by ventilating these two truss bays here after I put a solid piece in there. No vent there, vent, vent. And then I'll space it out with solid pieces, and then vent, solid, vent, and so on down the line. Well, the sunlight is starting to come over the top of the house. I thought I'd show you how I cut and measure these pieces, or how I measure and cut them. So they're 1 foot. I use my 1 foot speed square to mark them. Then I have 2 pairs of tin snips that I use. These are the heavier ones. And I use this to go through this thick portion where the vinyl is tripled up. Now this first piece is a single layer. This area here is a triple layer. This is where I need these heavy snips. And I just use a regular pair of good old, they might be Stanley tin snips. Go ahead and cut through. Now this area here, which is formed in kind of a bead, you have to bend it, roll this up to make room for the cutters, but it works pretty good. Just keep bending this forward like that, and you can get through it. And that's it. White on this side, but brown on this side. Now as I'm working, I discovered that, well, yeah, the paint's wearing down already and showing some white. You can see it a lot on here too, a lot of the white. I'm not too concerned, because after everything's up, I can just go over it with the brown can of spray paint again and redo it. The instructions on the Rust-Oleum can say 5 to 7 days for this paint to fully adhere to the plastic. So it hasn't been 5 to 7 days yet. It's been about 3 or 4 days, 3 days since I sprayed these. So that's that. Now I have another problem here. Okay, so the problem here with fitting this is that this raised area doesn't fit in this gap. So in order to fit this piece in there, I'm snipping it back again a bit, like this. Just to ease it so it'll slide in there. Holding it up so the camera can see it. Only about a ½ inch back. And that's that. So this is what I've got so far. Started out with a solid piece, then a perforated piece under the 9-inch wide bay, then a solid piece, then a perforated piece under the first 24-inch wide bay, then solid, then perforated on the next 24-inch wide bay, and then another solid piece, and now I'll have a perforated piece under this 24-inch wide bay, and so on until I get down to the 16-inch on center bays. So I'll continue on with that and show you what it looks like. I got all those soffit pieces cut and put in all the way out to where I stopped removing them. I'm going to get on that ladder and point something out up there. So interestingly, and luckily for me, this new piece of vented soffit matched up perfectly. I had to cut the edge off it to fit it in to a piece of the original soffit when I was done, but the dimensions worked out almost perfectly. And so I'm done with the soffits now for this year. Next summer I'll do the rest on this side. This is the back of the house, all the way down there to the back of the garage. We'll be all done. Right now I just have to rehang the gutter and put a transition piece between the gutter I'm rehanging and the gutter I left there, and try to seal it up so it doesn't leak.
I rehung the gutter and fabricated a piece to bridge a 2-inch gap that was created when I cut the middle of the seamless run to take a section down. It's sealed with 100% pure silicone and pop riveted into place. It'll never leak. I didn't do the gutter work in this video because it's gotten too long. If you're interested in seeing it, look for a separate video to come.
Well, bring on the rain this afternoon. We're ready for it. This stuff takes half an hour to be rain ready. And then in a couple days when we have some dry weather, I'll get up here with the spray paint and hopefully make it disappear. So the soffits and fascias and the gutter are all painted now, freshly painted. Looks good. This color is Rust-Oleum color. It's the style of paint they call their 2X Premium. They claim it gives a double layer of protection
in one application, which is primer and paint. And this color looks a little dark. Maybe as time goes by it'll lighten up a bit, hopefully. This is called Espresso. So if you like this color, this is Rust-Oleum's color Espresso. I have vented, unvented, vented, unvented, vented, unvented. Every other piece of that soffit is vented. The old soffit, the original soffit, was vented every fifth piece, and the vents were tiny, tiny holes. It's hard to imagine any air got through them, but I guess it did, but it couldn't have been much. This is going to be a good improvement for ventilation, I know it will. And now over the winter I'm going to be going up there a few times, maybe twice a month, maybe, just to see how the moisture level is up in there. Well, stay tuned, I'll give you an update. Thanks for watching. Please take a moment to like and subscribe.